Back at it here with another edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Jeffri Chadiha, Sam McDowell, Soren Petro with you. We're buying and selling on some of the topics going into training camp. We had the rookies reporting on Tuesday. We'll be talking about Chris Jones, his contract. What can we expect from him in this one? Are we going to be seeing some guys get some time off in training camp? Patrick Mahomes, what kind of year do we expect? Maybe a bounce back. Statistically, one of his lower numbers seasons last year. We'll talk about Xavier Worthy. Talk about whether or not there's going to be any late additions. We've seen that in the past from the Kansas City Chiefs. Kadarius Toney. Oh, we couldn't do a podcast without talking about Kadarius Toney. We'll do that as well. It's all happening right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeffri Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeffri Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeffri Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. And guys, we'll buy or sell on these topics that we've got. We're going to go over some of the things that we think are going to be of note at Chiefs training camp and some of the things that we're going to be talking about. And you can either buy or sell. You get how it works. Anybody have any questions on how it works?
I'm good.
Are you good?
I'm a veteran here.
Yeah, you've done it before.
All right. Yeah.
Sam, you think you got it figured out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm good now, but there was a question in the chat group beforehand.
Yes, we did. We went over a couple of things. A little preparation, the pre-show meet, as we like to call it. All right, let's start right off with a little bit of Chris Jones. Chris Jones will be more productive on this contract than he was on his last contract, and his last contract covered what 20, 21, 22, and 23. It was a 4-year deal, correct? So we're talking about whether or not he'll be more productive than he was over the last 4 years, where he amassed 7.5, 9, 15.5, and 10.5 sacks. If you want just some raw numbers that were there, Jeff, you buying or selling?
I'm selling that. That's 42.5 sacks total over a 4-year period. Just under 11 sacks per year. I don't see him having more than maybe 2 more good years on this contract, and then he'll start declining. So, yeah, I think that he'll be a good player. He'll probably be an all-pro level player this year. Excuse me, not this year. This year and maybe next year. But beyond that, I just don't see where there's a great history of defensive tackles doing what he's doing late into their careers. And you look at what happened to Aaron Donald after he signed his big deal a couple of years ago. He's not even playing football now. And so, I love Chris Jones. I don't see him doing what he's been doing for 4 more years.
Okay. I'll chime in because I'm in total agreement with you. I do not see this. And in fact, this may go wrong. Give me a guy size-wise, productivity-wise. If you were going to pick one guy to say, okay, this is the guy that I think maybe I'll put Chris Jones and say he's going to track like this guy tracked. Who would be the guy you would take a look at?
You mean
his size?
You mean if you're being optimistic about it?
No, I mean just realistic about it. Because the guy I came up with was J.J. Watt, and J.J. Watt basically fell off a cliff after age 9. Now, he went from, multiple, defensive player of the years. He had 16 sacks at age 29 in 2018. After that, 4, 5, 1, 12 and a half, right? He played in 8, 16, 7, and 16 games. Like, when, there's a lot of wear and tear that comes with playing on that defensive line. And I will say this, Chris Jones is in tremendous physical condition. I mean, he always comes into camp. It seems like he's in better shape each year that he comes in. And I think that'll be the case. And I don't think he's done, like, there was some of the stuff that JJ Watt did in his workouts, I think contributed to why he started breaking down. Like, there's, I have never seen Chris Jones workouts, but you'd see some of the videos of JJ Watt and you're like, why are you putting yourself through that? Like, I don't think that's actually, that's great that you can do it. You're superhuman, but I think you're tearing your body down. I don't know what Chris Jones workouts are, but I'm, since we don't get videos all the time, like JJ Watt was always putting out, but like, this is usually where you kind of fall off. I think you can make a case that the Chiefs, if they could have gotten something for Chris Jones, they probably should have taken it, and they should have cleared out the cap space, and they should have traded him. And I think, if anything, this year will probably be pretty good. I think he'll still have a very good year this year. But like, to think that this over the next 4 years is going to go well, no. I think the last couple of years, you could be looking at an albatross of a contract, and through no fault of Chris Jones, it's just a really physical, tough position to play. Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, this exercise of looking at this question taught me two things. I mean, one is just how good Chris Jones has been over the last 4 years, because it goes beyond the sack numbers. Chris Jones has ranked first or second in total pressures each of the last 3 years. The year before, his first year on this last deal, he was third. So he's just been a dominant force. But the second thing that really has to enter your mind is the tail end of what you said, Soren, which is how beat up he is because of how many snaps he plays. Like, this exercise just shows you that, first of all, this probably plays into one of the reasons the Chiefs do make him the exception to the rule of moving on from guys, is he doesn't miss a lot of games. I mean, Chris Jones, but the other side of that is he has played a lot of football. And I mean, like, within every game he plays, he plays a high percentage of snaps for defensive tackles. He plays playoff games at a number that most players his position do not play. We saw at the end of the Super Bowl that Andy Reid said he was pushing Chris Jones to stay on the field, because there's just some natural exhaustion that comes with that position. And Stren, you said it, like, Chris Jones comes into camp in better condition than he does the year before every year. But I just think what this exercise shows you is he's already been the exception in these last 4 years. And even if he continues to be an exception for his age, it's just going to be hard to match what he's already done these last 4 years, because it's just been that good. So I agree with Jeff on the sense that I think Chris Jones is going to be an all-pro player this year. It's not going to surprise me at all if he's an all-pro player next year. At age 32, in the third year of this deal, that's just going to be more difficult because of all the things I just mentioned. There's going to be a lot of wear and tear there.
Yeah. So all three of us are selling.
Yeah.
Listen, I hope I'm wrong, and I do think this year is going to be pretty good. But I just think, the longer you go, there's got to be some rough ones. And what you hope is that if he does start experiencing injuries, that he's healthy when they get to the playoffs, right? If you're a Chiefs fan, that's what you got to be hoping for. But just in the 30s, like 30s is not good for football at anything other than kickers and quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to buy this, but like, the bar that he has set is so high that, like, that's, like I said, it's half the equation for why you have to sell, I think, is because you're not comparing him to the rest of the league with this question. You're comparing him to his own production. And if Chris Jones is fifth in the NFL in pressures, it's not as good as what he did under the 4 years of this last contract.
Yeah. Well, and like Travis Kelce, so much of his success has been based on athleticism, his quickness, right? And so that's going to go as you get into your 30s. That means when you're in the trenches, you're just getting more and more beat up. I mean, this year especially, we talked about it before, just a lot more teams are going to be running the football more consistently, and he's going to be taking a lot more double and triple teams. It's going to be rough.
With free consultations, no commissions, and in-house crews, every project coming with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt and Concrete is your one-stop shop for all things parking lot. They keep your parking lot safer, help you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Been solving problems with parking lots in Kansas City since 1994. They are your expert. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. All right, let's move on now to Andy Reid and whether or not he should be adjusting his training camp. Andy Reid should adjust his training camp and give the vets some days off. Are you buying or selling on that, Jeff?
I'm going to sell, even though I think you'll still see guys like Travis Kelce probably get days off because of his age. But for the most part, I've been stunned at how well he's been able to keep this team from having the kind of injuries late in the season that have capsized other teams. Like this team for the last 2 years, especially, has had every key player pretty much be ready to go and available. And obviously, they lost to Menahue in the playoffs last year, and that was a big one. But for the most part, guys have benefited from this rigorous training camp. I see a lot of people around the league who don't really get after it, in camps anymore. And Andy's old school in that way. I think it works, and I think if you're going to go for a three-peat, you ain't going to change it now.
Yeah, Sam, I'll be interested in your thoughts on this because you watch more of training camp than any of the three of us. What's your perspective? Buying or selling?
Yeah, I'm selling. The reason that I thought this was an interesting topic is because, Chris Jones told the Stars Jesse Newell that he's going to lobby Andy Reid to actually get days off. The three of us have talked about giving Travis Kelce more time because of the positive effect a week off had on his body late in the season last year. But I just think there's an exception with this particular team. Going for a three-peat, I think the thing you're going to have to guard against most is complacency. And the time you're going to have to guard against it the most frequently is during training camp. And I just think that guys like Travis Kelce specifically are tone setters during camp by being out there every day. I think it shows an otherwise young roster that every play matters. If you see that guy playing his butt off in training camp, even though he's won 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years, it sets a tone for the way that you integrate with this team. And I think giving guys days off will subtract from that tone. And so I think there's other ways maybe to, you plays off. Maybe they play fewer plays in training camp, but I just think giving guys days off would be a dangerous precedent for this particular team.
If it ain't broke, why fix it? Right? Like they've been doing camp the way they've been doing camp, and they haven't had, a lot of injuries. They've been pretty healthy. Why would you mess with what is already working? So for me, it's a hard sell, and I get it. And Chris Jones had a fine year last year without going to camp, and so I'm sure that's his jumping off point. Like, look, I was fresher. Well, you weren't better, not from a sack perspective. He was tops. I know, like on Pro Football Reference, he was like their top adjusted value guy for the team last year. Part of that's because Patrick Mahomes' numbers were down. It's usually Mahomes, but it was him. I think there is something to it, but like this has worked. So why would you mess with what has worked? And I do, like, first of all, so I'm selling. I'm a hard sell. Keep doing what you're doing. But does anybody think Andy Reid's going to do it?
I think this question's different now than it was a year ago, than it was, the year before, because we have the evidence of Travis Kelce, the way his body responded to time off. And because, I agree with you that Chris Jones might not have taken a step forward last year, but the flip side is he didn't take a step back either. And he missed all of camp. He set out the entire thing. And I think it's hard for a guy like that to say camp really matters on a day-to-day basis. I just think he's going to be pushed on this question more than he has been in the past.
But Chris is making our case for us, right? For the first one, right? One more reason why he's not going to have the same career. He's already lobbying to get time off. Training camp wants to change things up.
No, listen, I think if you're Andy Reid, you have to think about it because this is the first time with the Chiefs that he's had aging players, right? Like his
aging star players,
right?
yes.
Because his offensive tackles were going to get there, and then they each got hurt and were done, right? Like he's never really had to do this, so we may be talking like, well, this is how he does things, and we've just never seen him have an aging star, since he's been in Kansas City, and now he's going to have to figure it out. I think there is something to be said, like, just doing something because, for the sake of doing it. I do think Andy Reid, though, has a reason for everything that he does. And so I don't think it's just like, well, let's run him into guys. Because like it's clear that you can, still play at a high level without 2-a-days, right? For a while, coaches, they're like, well, we got to have 2-a-days or we're not going to be able to, be ready for the season. Well, they are. They all have. So, I think it'll be interesting. But you're right. He's got a vocal guy who's going to be pushing for days off. We'll see how Andy.
Jeff, tell us how different Andy Reid's camps are from the other ones you visit.
Oh, I mean, I would say, look, most camps don't go on as long as his camp goes on. The practices aren't nearly as long as his are. I mean, I'll go to some camps and they'll be out there for like an hour and 15, 20 minutes and be done. And you're sitting there thinking, man, now there's teams like the Lions that are very physical and really get after it. The Rams back when Jeff Fisher was coaching, there were certain coaches that had that mentality. But for the most part, most teams take the attitude of, we're putting our work in. We these guys are professionals. You don't have to get into that mental grind. The Chiefs are one of the few teams that still go away to go to camp, which is still a big part of that too, which I think is also part of what makes it harder on players because you're away from home for so long. So, no, it's definitely, if it's not the toughest camp, it's the top 3 by far. I can't even think of somebody who comes close to being as tough as his camps are.
And it's shorter this year, right, Sam? Last year it was like 5. Like it was really.
Yeah, they got there forever, it seemed like.
Well, I mean, so the rookies reported Tuesday, and then we got the veterans early next week. If it's shorter, it doesn't feel shorter to a guy that'll be out there.
Stop counting the days, right?
Yeah, trust me. The drives back and forth. Like I still long for the days of River Falls, Wisconsin. One, the weather was great, and we would go put in a week and be there and do all things football, and then you come back and you were done with it. Now it's like it's there, and so like every day I probably ought to try to get up there, and you got to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So. Give me River Falls any time. Listen, you can save 25% on your order at Besame Wellness if you use the promo code podcast25. That's podcast25, and you can save 25% on your entire order. So if you've got a big order, make sure you use podcast25 at Besame Wellness.
Besame Wellness, online or curbside. Shop daily at Besame Wellness for all your cannabis needs. Open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 9. Sundays 10 to 6. Locations in North Kansas City, Liberty, Smithville on Berry Road, and in Warrensburg. Even delivery for medical marijuana. Getting your cannabis has never been easier. We at Besame Wellness strive to make your life as easy as possible and cannabis as accessible as possible.
Let's talk about the quarterback, gentlemen. Patrick Mahomes will lead the NFL in passing yards. Are you going to buy or sell this? This is a hard one to buy just because it's the field versus one guy. So from a betting standpoint, so maybe don't take it too literal on just that he'll be actually number one, because I think it just the math of it would be sell on this. But like we're talking about basically getting back to being what he has been. We're talking about pushing out towards 5,000 yards. We're talking about having a big year. If he would be 3rd or 4th, I would give somebody who bought some credit on this one, but they were way off last year. Are you buying that he gets back to being, the league leader in yards?
No, I'm selling this too. I mean, for all the reasons that are pretty obvious. I think Sam's quoted these stats before, but you look at the way they pushed the football down the field last year. I know that they've got Worthy now and Hollywood Brown, but I still think defenses are going to say, take the long road to get to the end zone. It will make you work for it. They know their defense is good, so they'll play to that. When you're throwing the football that much, you're either behind or you have no defense. And I think that they usually have a pretty good chance of playing from up front. And they also know their defense get the job done. And the special teams are good too. And so I think you'll have a good year, but to be to where you're throwing the ball over the place and really putting up those kinds of numbers, I think that's going to be an area that other teams get into, not the Chiefs.
Okay. Sam?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that, I mean, like, top 3 or 4 counts, that would be, I think, pretty tough, because I think he winds up in like this 3 to 5 range, which means I interpret that as I'm selling.
Okay.
I think, it's not because I think he gets to 5,000 and somebody eclipses him. I don't think he gets to 5,000. I do think there's going to be improvement based on last year, which I base on a couple of things. One, that they saw some things last year, I think, that they've had more time for. 2 is because I think the wide receiver room is better, though could potentially be spending part of that time without Rashee Rice. But, I mean, look, other than the Super Bowl game, assisted by throwing the ball 46 times, assisted by having to come back on the last drive and therefore throwing a lot, and the overtime drive and throwing the ball a lot, it's not as though when the Chiefs played well in the playoffs that it was because he was throwing out these exuberant passing yards numbers. I mean, he's still in the playoffs, has 262, 215, 241. He plays fine. He plays well in the playoffs, but he's not throwing for 300 every week. And I can't remember the exact number, but I remember when we did the over-unders a couple months ago, there was one great game where he threw for more than 400. I think only 2 others where they threw for 300. And that was the piece of me that thought maybe he could, because he still finished 6th in yards last year, despite not having any, one of those outlier games out of 16, doesn't play week 17 or week 18. That was the part of me that thought, well, maybe he can get up there. But I agree with Jeff that I think there's going to be a better deep ball game, but it's still going to be a challenge for him the way defenses are going to play him.
I'm buying. And I think because Andy Reid is going to want to get back to what it is they do. I think they did bring in 2 guys to stretch the field. I think that's going to work. And the left tackle is the concerning part on this one. If drives keep, breaking down, I don't think you just have to air it out. You just have to keep moving the chains, right? You get a new set of downs, you get another chance of getting yards. And you mentioned it. He was 6th in passing yards last year, and he was only 500 behind the league leader, which was Tua. Right. And so part of it is defenses and because the clock never stops and people don't drop the ball and all that, you're getting less and less chance to have those bigger days. But I think this is what the entire offseason is going to have been about. He wants to throw the ball. He's always known throwing the ball is more efficient than running the ball. And so I think Andy Reid has spent the entire offseason working on whatever it is to counteract how defenses have been playing him, and I think they will have a great plan in place, and I think they'll be a lot better in the passing game, a lot more explosive. I think last year was the year that everybody needed to get this team. If this team is healthy this year and they can figure out left tackle, I think they're going to be definitively better this year over last year.
That's the thing. I think that to put up those kinds of numbers where you're leading the league, I think what Sam has said is right. I think he's going to be more in the top 5, but to lead the league, you got to have a lot of talent catching the ball too. And that to me is just because you got fast guys doesn't mean you got guys who are going to put up big numbers. I think you look at what the Rams have, you look at what the Niners have at receiver. CJ Stroud is somebody I would bet on being in that category. At Tua again, you got to have at least 2 guys are going to be 1,200-yard receivers. And right now, I wouldn't say they got anybody who I trust to get 1,200 yards.
Yeah, I know you don't see it for Travis Kelce, but there is a history of him doing that. If he would do it again, he's done it. But you don't see Hollywood Brown with this quarterback as a 1,200-yard receiver?
No. Mm-mm.
Really? Okay.
I think he ends up around 8.
Around 8.
Yeah.
Sam? Do you see Hollywood Brown as a guy that's going to have a big year?
Yeah, I mean, I think I predict him for over 1,000, and he's done that once. I think it was 1,005 or 1,008, something like that.
Yeah.
So I realize it's. I actually think it was one of my bold predictions that somehow wasn't bold enough, even though Jeff disagrees with it. But I think he has a career high in yards. I mean, I'm probably basing too much off of a mini camp thing, but
See,
I do think there's going to be a connection there.
I feel like Juju is a much better receiver than Hollywood, and he ended up with 950.
He got hurt late in the season or middle of the season, though, and was playing injured throughout the back half of the year. Started out much better than he finished.
Hollywood's not the beacon of health either, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's totally a fair thing. I mean, like I said, I mean, he's never gotten above the 1,010 whatever mark. I mean, it's certainly not unreasonable to say he won't get there.
Yeah. I think I'm putting most of my trust is in Andy Reid, right? That Andy Reid's got it figured out. And I do like the receivers. And listen, when you look at the depth of the receivers, that brings us to our next one. Xavier Worthy will have a better rookie season than Mecole Hardman. I was looking as I was getting ready for this one at the depth chart for the Chiefs. And remember how much time we spent, Sam, talking about 7 receivers?
Yes.
Last year. And if you have 7, it's because you don't really have 5 good ones, right? You don't know.
Yes.
I will say this. Of guys that people think should make the roster, right, or have thought that they should make the roster, or could be, something, they go 9 deep this year. They're not keeping 9 receivers. That's not my point.
Yes.
But Remigio is considered to be the best kick returner.
Remigio is going to be the camp darling. You were going to hear a lot about Remigio the same way that Justin Ross was the camp darling and finished with 10 catches or something like that. He's going to be the guy that everyone out there is saying you can't cut this guy.
Yeah. Well, and you have Justin Ross and you have Kadarius Toney and Mecole Hardman's back. People may not have seen that one, right? But and I think we know that Justin Watson, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and Rashee Rice are all making the team. And then there's also Sky Moore. So they're going to be cutting somebody of note at that wide receiver spot. Right?
Of note to us, of note to those that follow every day. I don't think that cutting Remigio or Justin Ross is going to be of note to the rest of the league.
I agree wholeheartedly, but it will be of note to the Chiefs fans.
Yes.
Right. Because they go 9 deep on guys that people think are good. Right.
Patrick Mahomes makes a lot of guys look good. That's the moral of that story.
So Xavier Worthy's definitely going to make it. Right. He's not getting cut. Does he have a better rookie season than Mecole Hardman? And by the way, to refresh your memory on what Mecole Hardman did in his rookie year, he had 26 catches for 538 yards and 6 touchdowns. Was good for 18 first downs. I would think that's an underrated stat. He had 4 carries for 17 yards. Xavier Worthy, are you buying or selling that Xavier Worthy will put up a better numbers than that? Jeff?
I'm selling just because Mecole Hardman's here.
Have you bought anything yet?
No, I haven't. I got some purchases left in me. It's still got some time left in this podcast.
A lot of salary cap space.
I probably would have bought it if Mecole Hardman wasn't here. But now that Mecole Hardman's here, it makes me think that he's going to eat up some of the space that Xavier Worthy would want to operate in. Ultimately, you look at Andy Reid's offense, there's not the way it runs. It's not built for a whole bunch of guys to get a whole bunch of big numbers. But I think if Xavier Worthy is where Mecole Hardman was, if he's close to that as a rookie, I think that's solid because I think what he brings to the table is really more about stretching the defense, like you were saying, as opposed to actually catching the football and making big plays. I think Rashee Rice was an outlier last year in what he did in this offense. They had to run a lot of stuff to get him those numbers. It didn't come organically within the system. It came out of desperation, really. I think with Hollywood Brown there, with Travis, with Hardman in the mix, with Justin Watson, I just don't see where there's all this run for Xavier Worthy to go out and really tear it up. And stop me when I said this before. Fast guys with hamstring injuries are never a good thing to bet on. He's already there.
All right, Sam?
Yeah, what Jeff just said was my hesitation. But despite that hesitation, I'm still buying that he has a better year. With one primary reason. Mecole Hardman, like Rashee Rice, was pigeonholed in a very specific spot on the field for the first half of the season, their rookie seasons. I think Xavier Worthy is going to see reps at a larger variety of spots, which is going to allow him to play more snaps. I mean, that 26 receptions, that would be pretty wildly disappointing if a rookie first round wide receiver cannot get to that amount of catches. Mecole Hardman had his best yards per reception by far of his career that rookie year. So that was the difficulty, is Mecole Hardman made the most out of those catches. Having said that, I do remember the Baltimore Ravens just completely leaving him wide open on what it was, that week 2 or week 3, where just unguarded for like a 70-yard touchdown. But I'm with you, Soren. The stat that I'm most curious if they can get out of Xavier Worthy is the first down number. Because what the Chiefs need most with the way defenses play them are guys that can move the chains on the outside the numbers. And like, can Xavier Worthy be that guy? And that I actually thought, going through that number, that a month and a half ago when we did our over-unders, that would have been an interesting over-under, was just the first down numbers for that reason. Or is this just going to be a big play guy? But I am betting, just because I think he's going to be moved around the field more than a common rookie is for Andy Reid, that he gets to Mecole Hardman's numbers overall.
Let me ask you this. Where's your head now on whether or not Rashee Rice will be suspended before the year?
Oh, he's getting suspended.
I know he's getting suspended, but it's a matter of when.
Oh, I think before the year.
I'm still expecting he's going to miss games this year.
Yeah. That's the thing, is like, and I know what the cornerback got suspended for 8 games, but that was a domestic.
Cam Sutton.
Yeah, Cam Sutton. That was a domestic abuse situation. Are we sure Rashee Rice is going to? I think he's going to be. I think he could be suspended for the 25 season.
But why would that?
Because I don't think his legal stuff is going to play out till next summer, and I don't think we've said this before. Sam thinks it's coming. Before the season, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure.
I'm not sure, but I do think, and the way I've mentioned it before is, I just think, I mean, it's the opening night of the NFL, and I just don't think the NFL wants the image having the video that we have of that player being part of their opening night.
Yeah. And I think the Chiefs, everything I've heard is the Chiefs have been preparing as if he's going to be suspended. And so, I mean, I hear the legal argument you're making, but I don't think they've ever had to have that be a impediment to them making.
No, they can make their decision. But Cam Sutton entered a diversion, so he basically admitted guilt. Mm-hmm. Rashee Rice has also walked out and had his lawyer walked out and said it was him. He was there. He's sorry. He's going to make. Yeah. So he's admitted it. Yeah. I'm just curious as to why we haven't gotten there already. I bring that up not to get into the Rashee Rice thing, but just to say, if Rashee Rice is out, we really think, to Sam's point, a first-round draft pick. And I know we had this conversation last year when I was picking Rashee Rice to be the guy, and it's like, well, what rookies have really done well for Andy Reid? You got to go all the way back to Deshaun Jackson to find one. Now all we got to do is go back to Rashee Rice, and if Rashee Rice isn't going to play a bunch of games, somebody's catching the ball.
Yeah. Well, so I remember back in the
buying. I'm hard buying. I beat those numbers.
I remember back in the day when Sky Moore showed up and people thought, man, this guy's going to be great. And then he came back for a second year and they thought he's going to be great. So, I mean, I'm more of the mindset that you look at Andy Reid's history with young receivers, first-year receivers, and Rashee Rice, and I think Deshaun Jackson are the only guys who ever really set the world on fire in 20 years of coaching. And so that tells me that you could see some of the same growing pain with Xavier Worthy.
You could, but this isn't asking him to set the world on fire. I mean, the baseline of
Mecole Hardman.
Yeah. I mean, I think beating Mecole Hardman, I think, is it's doable. Now
it's like setting a chair in someone's backyard on.
Well, what I would say, if Sky Moore had a 500-yard season as a rookie, would we have said, "Oh, he's a disappointment"? Would we have said, "Oh, that looks good"?
We would have said that looks good if he had done that, but he didn't. He had like 5 catches for 100 and some odd yards, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I think the better. I mean, like, where do you guys think Worthy ends up, Jeff? I mean,
I think he'll be around 500. I think he'll be around 500, probably 25 catches. I don't think he'll be surpassed. I don't think he's going to be a 700, 800 yard receiver. So I think he'll be in the neighborhood of I don't think he'll be where Sky Moore was either. I don't think he's going to be a 200-yard, whatever, 11 catch, whatever he had as a rookie kind of guy. I think he'll
go ahead.
No, but I think he'll have the same growing pains that Rashee Rice in this first half of the season wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
By the way, for the record, Sky Moore, sorry, because I know you've started and stopped a couple of times. So apologies, but Sky Moore, just to refresh everybody's memory, was his rookie year. He was 22 catches for 250.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's a precedent there. There's a rookie receiver that didn't, come on, and it didn't.
So Mecole had 26, yeah, and so
26, but he had 500 yards. Like to Sam's point, he was 20 yards a pop.
Yeah,
and I don't even remember how, what happened if he caught a couple underneath and turned up field and ran because he doesn't track the ball well on the deep balls. I don't know. I don't think Xavier Worthy's going to have 20 yards a pop because I think he's going to get targeted more. And so I think the yards per catch will be less, but I think he'll blow by that catch number. Yeah, I think I'll be there. He'll go by the catch number in the first half of the season.
So Hollywood Brown's got 1,200. Travis is going to have 1,100.
I fought on Mahomes. I fought on Mahomes leading the league in passing yards.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm consistent here.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm consistent on
fantasy owners pay attention. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a hard buy on that. I think they're going to use Xavier Worthy, and I think the whole, standing next to Matt Nagy the whole time just speaks to how much, when he has been hurt, it speaks to how much I think are invested in him. I think they drafted him. Again, I think the offense, has a plan, and that plan included Xavier Worthy before he was even a Chief, and it definitely includes him now. And so, but to your point, hamstring injuries on fast guys, awful. I mean, that's the scary part. That to me is the only way he doesn't get there is if he's hurt. That's the only way. All right. The Chiefs still need to add a player to their offense before the season. Buying or selling, Jeff?
I'll buy that. I'll buy it. I think running back is a big question mark. I don't, Donovan Smith is still out there, right, in the open market, and he hadn't signed with anybody, right?
I haven't seen his name.
Yeah. And so you kind of hope that Sua Mata'ia is the real thing, but if you got to go look for a swing tackle or somebody to come in and play in a pinch, he could be the guy. But I think running back certainly is an area where they're going to have to think long and hard because Jerick McKinnon meant so much to them, last 2 years ago. And I think that part of the offense is going to be even more important if you're talking about trying to stretch the field and having guys who can do things with the football out of the backfield. I just don't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is enough. So I think it's not a big addition, but I think it would be an addition. So I would go with buying that.
Okay. Sam?
Yeah, I buy it, and that's the exact same position. I think it's the first time in the Mahomes era that we're going to be talking about, like, as the waiver wire comes after the initial 53, it's not who from the Chiefs is getting picked up elsewhere, but who are the Chiefs picking up? Because I think it's become more glaring that they're absent a third down running back. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire played much better football last year than he did the 2 previous years. But I was looking up some numbers with Jerick McKinnon and just his usage. Keep in mind, Jerick McKinnon missed the last half of last season. He had more yards in scrimmage on third down than Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire combined last year, despite missing half the year. The year before, when he was healthy, he had more than double what those 2 players did combined on third downs last year. And so I still don't think they have the answer on their roster for who fills the Jerick McKinnon role. And therefore, I think that they should still be looking for what's the answer on third down running back.
I'll be interested to see if the Jerick McKinnon role doesn't end up being the 2 tight end. Like that's how they're going to try to slow up. I think because like the McKinnon blocking is to me the scariest part.
I think the screen game too. I don't think Pacheco is good in the screen game, and I still want. And we know Andy Reid likes to use the screen game, but right now I don't know whose number he calls with it.
You don't have anybody. You're not an Imani Bailey, TCU, the undrafted.
Last year, I was too much on the Deneric Prince train after minicamp, and he the pads
got
came
burned?
on. The pads came on, and I got burned for that. So yeah, I'm hesitant on any undrafted guys for now.
Yeah, I'm going to sell on it because I think if they wanted a running back, they would have done it. If I'm wrong, if I end up being wrong, it will be Jerick McKinnon that comes walking through that door. But I'll sell on it that the Deneric Prince, they were high on him too.
Oh yeah, they were really high on him,
and so he's still there, and he's had a year now in the system. Yeah, it's like the stunning part to me was bringing back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't know what's going on other than let's just keep trying to justify this first round pick with that one.
Sorry to interrupt, but I do have a theory with that, which is that this year's draft was really weak at running back because of, we talked off camera about, guys like Devin Neal at KU. There's 5 or 6 of those examples in college of guys that, scouts in the NFL anticipated to come out at running back. They stayed in. So therefore, the anticipation is next year's class is going to be pretty good. And so I do think that the Chiefs had some thought of, next year's running back class, Pacheco will be in his, 3rd year. You'll have it's just a good opportunity to have that be the time for the need as opposed to this last year.
Yeah, no, and that's fine. But I still, I'm not convinced he even makes the team. Right?
Well, I think who makes it over him?
Well, because I think
yeah.
I don't have the name because I'm not sold on Reese Zammit and that whole 9 yards. But I guess he will make the team. I mean, I'm just looking at it, but I think they're going to like Prince, and I think they may like another one of the other running backs. Like I said, I brought up Bailey just because he was very productive at TCU, and
he's a mystery right now.
Yeah, and so I mean, he looks the part of a guy, that, and I think more and more teams, you can find guys that aren't drafted. So that they need it, no, but so I'll sell on that one. I don't think they need. I think they can make it go with the guys that they have. By the way, Gann Asphalt and Concrete proudly serves the greater Kansas City metro area. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your lot. Get your lot restriped today. Get it seal-coated as well. Before we know it, the fall will be here. The temperatures will be falling, and it gets tougher to get it in. Don't be racing against Mother Nature. You can get the seal coating done right now. It's nice and warm with Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Let's go to this then. Kadarius Toney will finish the season on the Chiefs roster. You buying or selling, Jeff?
I will sell that.
Okay.
I just, and maybe I'm going to get burned on this one. I just don't see how he even makes the roster. Just all the baggage. I know that they believe in his talent. We've heard all this stuff. I just think the numbers don't warrant it. The headaches he's created don't warrant it. And maybe there's some Father Flanagan deep inside Andy Reid that just he's not going to give up on the guy. Hell be damned. But he does nothing for this team. And so I don't think he's going to be there.
Okay. Sam?
So I need to ask a clarification on the question because if he's injured, is he still on the roster?
He was injured last year, quote unquote.
Injured and on the IR is still on the roster.
Look, this question is phrased as "Will he be?" not "Should he be?" And so I'm gonna buy and say he will be on the roster at the end of the season because if he survived last year and still walked out on media night at the Super Bowl, what will it take for him not to be on the roster? As the team is going to the Super Bowl, part of the conversation is, will Kadarius Toney be there so we can ask him about the fact that he's accused the Chiefs of making up an injury on his Instagram account, and he's still there. The fact that he was on that flight to Vegas last year stunned me. I just had thought, why bring him? Why bring him? Why bring him? And he's there. And I just think if that guy survives that, it's hard for me to envision them actually moving on from him.
100%. I'm right next to you on that. Of course he will be on this roster. He'll be on this roster in 5 years. There's no way to get him off this roster. I don't know. I can't see it. They see something that I don't see. And listen, I hope he has a great year. I hope he's a phenomenal weapon, right? But
I see him going to play. Like, where does he fit into the offense at this point?
That's what I said. Like, I think Trent and I are on the same thing about it's will he, not should he. Because I'd have a different answer.
But I mean, he's the second. I think he's the second most expensive receiver on the roster, isn't he?
I'm sure he is. Everybody else is a rookie, pretty much.
Well,
Hollywood Brown is the first, right?
Because he's on an old first round contract. Justin Watson.
Justin Watson, yeah.
8.2 for Marquise Brown, 2.9 for Justin Watson, 2.5 for Kadarius Toney.
So you've got Worthy, Brown, Rice, Watson.
No,
I'm just counting. You've got 5 guys right there who will be playing ahead of him, right?
Yes.
And then you figure it's either him or Sky Moore, right?
I think I do think the IR is the likely destination.
Yeah. Why even waste the time? I mean, maybe we're just
Exactly, Jeff. Exactly.
Yeah.
But they've been doing it like it's puzzling.
Okay.
It's like, who has photo? What photos of who does he have?
Yeah.
Because you can't give me a reason why he's on the team.
Okay.
Other than he has good stop-start ability.
Yeah. They saw the ability 2 years ago, and what game was that? Maybe it was Jacksonville mid-season, like a couple weeks after his acquisition. Yeah. And I just think that glimpse has been stuck in their mind of this is his ceiling, and his ceiling is good enough to play meaningful snaps. We haven't seen his ceiling since, and we've certainly seen the floor.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the third down running back because he can't catch.
That's an interesting thought. If whether or not he can, block. They did line him up to like his carries last year were like backfield carries, not.
I think he is a running back.
I hadn't thought about that at all, Soren, but that's an interesting thought.
I mean, he's around for something, I guess. That's about the only thing.
I just feel like Hardman does what he would have done. All right, that they were looking for somebody to do what Hardman did when Hardman left. Right.
Right.
Yes, they both stretch the field horizontally more than they do vertically.
Yeah. Because one can't track the ball and one can't catch it.
Yeah.
So it's put the two of them together, you've got the ultimate failure at wideout.
We're talking about a team that's won 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls.
All right. Finally, the Chiefs will move to Kansas. The clock is ticking on the 1 year with the Star Bonds. So at any point, Missouri's trying to get some things done, supposedly maybe by the end of the year. Sam, you've done a lot covering the stadiums. We'll let you take the lead on this one. Are you buying or selling the Chiefs are moving to Kansas?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could kind of flip a coin right now with this, but the reason I'm going to say I'm selling on that, which means I'm buying the Missouri part of it, is because I still just think it's where they want to be. I still think it's their preference, and therefore I think, it's sort of like the NHL restricted free agency where, hey, we get a chance to match. We get last word here. And so I do think Missouri is going to have that advantage of that's where the Chiefs prefer to be. But, I'm acknowledging that I might be giving too much credit to their ability to put a package together, because the one in Kansas certainly has the appearance of being pretty enticing to them, knowing that there are hurdles that remain. I don't think this Star Bonds thing is all sealed up the way people make it out to be. You've got to have somebody buy the bonds after all. But it is still has the appearance for now as a pretty lucrative potential offer to them in Kansas. And I'm just, like I said, my bet here is just because I know what the Chiefs' preference is.
Okay. Jeff?
I will buy them going to Kansas, and this is me flying in the face of everything Sam just said because he has facts. I'm just going off. I feel like
in today's climate, what's that matter? Yeah,
that's right, exactly. I feel like there are a lot more that Missouri has to do. There's more probably hurdles to getting a vote. You have to have a vote for one, right? You got to have the state come up with the money. you've got to have some way of getting around whatever impediment Frank
White
creates within the county. And I think once you see a shiny new possibility with a price tag that you don't have to worry about paying, like for every NFL owner in this league, that's gold. You can't walk away from that easily. So while their heart may be in Missouri, I think their heads are thinking Kansas could be a boon for us, especially with the gambling, especially with the possibility of, Soren's dream, an indoor dome stadium, retractable roof, whatever you want. I just think it's a sexier place to go. So I'm buying Kansas.
Completely. I mean, I know that's the opposite of what I said, but that's completely reasonable. And it's all the reasons why if they do go to Kansas, that will be their checklist.
I come back to all the teams that have left the state of Missouri over the years: A's, St. Louis Browns, Kansas City Kings, St. Louis Hawks, St. Louis Cardinals, St. Louis Rams. Like literally, that's what the state of Missouri does, is run off professional sports teams. And I don't know why we would think this would be any different. And I'm buying it. I'm a hard buy. And I actually had some people tell me they think the Royals to Kansas are an even more of a slam dunk, which that one, I feel like John Sherman wants downtown Kansas City, Missouri. Right. So I don't buy that one as much. But the Chiefs, I'm not sold on I think they love them some Arrowhead, but I think they also know that they gave that a shot. And how can you turn down a new stadium?
Oh.
And all the revenue that comes with it? It would be like, how do you walk into the owners' meetings?
Well, that's why I said it is important to note that is not like the blank check that I think right now it's made out to be. There's still some hurdles in that offer as well. If there weren't, I think this question would be easier to answer.
What's the hurdles on the Kansas side?
Well, you do have to get somebody to buy the bonds.
Right.
Like some investor has to buy the bonds, and I'm not exactly sure, without being an economist, that is a great investment for an investor to make. I think one question that could, if it is a good investment, certainly somebody in this equation has more than $1 billion to potentially invest. I'd be interested if they would, potentially be the buyer there in that case. So that's getting out in front of my skis a little bit because I'm not an economist, but I just this isn't quite as sealed up that this offer would just be presented to them blank check. There still has to be approved. And you still have to get somebody to buy the bonds.
But today, right now, what we know is Kansas is gung-ho putting money forth to say, hey, we want this. And Missouri's like, hey, we're kind of scrambling around, looking under the sofa to find some nickels and pennies, and we're going to put something together at some point.
The effort absolutely matters. Yes. The effort matters. I've been saying that for a while. Like the effort has been different and quite a bit different on both sides of the state line. And I do think that's not a non-factor in where these teams end up.
I think the part that doesn't get talked about enough on the Kansas side is it's for 70% of the price, right? The Chiefs still got to come up 30%. But 30% of a couple billion is $600 million. Like that's a lot of money to come up with just on your own. And I'm with you, Sam. I think they would be one of the buyers on the bonds. I think they would do that. And for the people, listen, the people I've talked to, I will freely admit are very pro Kansas people. That I'm gonna, but the people I've spoken to think that getting people to buy the bonds will not be an issue. And so I don't know, but like I said, I'm admitting to you, they are super pro the Kansas and the Chiefs coming to Kansas, and they seem to think that's a minor deal. I'm with you. It's a lot of money. Someone's got to actually put it down. But I also think the money that the Chiefs have to pay, like for it to really work, you need a bunch of other things around it, right? That are generating sales tax.
Yes.
And so you're not just building the stadium, you're building the practice facility, and then you're building other businesses around it. And so this project could get to the $4 billion mark with the stadium and whatever all. Are they going to build hotels? You know, one of the things had a hotel here, and you know, the Star with all the, you know, commercial things. Like basically, the Chiefs are going to have to become real estate developers.
Casino. I mean, a place that you can wager and place bets nearby. But you know, I mean, that's all investment that I do think would help the project overall, right? Because Star bonds are, as you mentioned, sales tax revenue, and that's the revenue that would go back towards paying the bonds. And suddenly that looks like a better investment. And I don't know if that better pushes across the finish line, but suddenly if you're, you know, considering buying those bonds with that ancillary development in play, I would imagine that would be more attractive for an investor.
Yeah, I'll buy. I think the Chiefs will end up in Kansas. I think the Royals will stay in Missouri. So that's where I think that ultimately gets done. All right. Remember, we're always brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Don't let liability be a problem in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. Gann Asphalt and Concrete's been solving parking lot problems for 30 years. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com and with our friends at Besame Wellness. Podcast 25. That's how you can save 25% on your entire order at Besame Wellness. Besame Wellness 25. Go to podcast or use the promo code podcast 25. Save 25% on your entire order. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here